the debt trap is something that a lot of these African leaders now use to keep us perpetually where we don't want to be. So once a country like Guinea gets into the debt trap, it is constantly a rat race, and they never get out of it. Because the debt trap is not for you to be able to get out of. The debt trap is for you to be able to stay there so that they can constantly perpetrate your poverty. So the truth is, once they get you into the debt trap, then there is nothing you can really do. All your mineral resource that if you had developed, that you'll have used to create jobs and enablement for your society, then becomes something that causes you pain. Because in the end, once the debt trap sets in, then there's not too much you can do. All you just do is you start to wallow in disbelief at how your fortunes have been lost. When you do that for the next 20 years, all the things that you ought to spend on development is spent on waste and trying to fight cases in courts. The first time when they came to you as an African leader, all you had needed to do was to be able to say no, that you were going to look for partners to be able to develop. But once you collect that loan because you want money, then forget it. And that's how they perpetually keep Africa poor. Number one, the debt of the lead, the greed of the leaders. Number two, the debt trap. Once they put you into the debt trap, and that's it. Number three, they also use a lot of non-state actors. So if they really want to get all of this resource, and they look and they say, oh, they cannot get it, the next thing is to use a lot of non-state actors. Non-state actors which also involve a lot of greedy businessmen, a lot of greedy people within, intensify efforts and cause chaos among themselves. Because in an environment where there's chaos, where there's lack of peace and tranquility, we'll have no development. So once they can successfully cause this chaos, then they manipulate people against each other. And that's why you start to hear things like crude oil theft. The theft is done in total connivance with other superior powers, looking at also the greed of the people you have on ground. Because they know that most of the people within the system cannot really fight out the greed. So once they know that, they capitalize on the greed system that a lot of people have, with causing chaos and causing wars. And how do they cause these wars? They go to look for the fault lines you had before. So take for instance, if two tribes had a problem, and the two tribes are fighting, they go and exacerbate that fight in such a way that you think it's a tribal war, but really it's a mineral war. And they use that fight to be able to take over your mineral resources. Truth has to be said. If you fall for this, then it's the beginning of your problem. Also, they go out there and start a new wave of colonialism. Another new wave of colonialism is in the gifts they give you. They give gifts to be able to get into your goodwill, but in the end, there's a long-term gain as regards what they truly want. Truth is, nothing is really free in life. You have to understand that. The reason why anybody gives you something is because definitely in the long run and the grand scheme of things, they want something also in return from you. So if you think it's because they love you so much, that's why they give you this gift, then you are the one that is foolish. Another way they are able to capture your mineral resource is your election processes. Do not be deceived. For every election process you have, there's an interference one way or the other from external powers. Everybody wants to determine who will be your next leader. Because if they can determine who will be your next leader, so that they'll be able to do things that will favor them alone. So, when your people start shopping for who is going to be the next leader, the very first thing they do is that they offer to provide money for elections and campaign. Truth is, the Nigerian law totally frowns against money coming from abroad because of foreign interference. But the truth has to be said. There's a lot of money that comes from external forces and that gets into the election cycle. Everybody out there wants a stake in the pie. So all sorts of people are trying as much as possible to influence the outcome of every election. So once they can get a hold of your electoral process, then to a large extent, they can also get a hold of your leadership process. So how do they do it? They have all sorts of agents within that are tackling and that are trying to get across to these people. Another part of it is also using, a lot of proxies. Proxies that mask as people that are coming to help, but they also have an agenda. And in all of this, they cannot be successful in all of this if your leaders do not show, number one, a level of greed, number two, a level of ignorance. Because if your leadership shows a level of greed, they will be able to capitalize on the greed. If it shows ignorance, they'll be able to capitalize on the ignorance. Another way that they're able to take off your resource is when your leaders have a bad past and they have secrets and debt on your leaders. It's another very important part. When they have secrets of your leaders and they have debt on your leaders, then they're able to manipulate. To a large extent, even in the American elections, and I'll take you way back to the 30s, do you know that Adolf Hitler had a lot of senators working for him to be able to tilt the electoral process in the 1940s elections when Weldon Winkie ran against Roosevelt? Do you know that there were many senators that were communists in nature, beg your pardon, that were backing Wilkie because they thought he was going to do the bidding of Hitler? And these were people that preached a high level of anti-Semitism, and they thought they were going to do the bidding of Hitler. So from time immemorial, people are constantly trying to look into the electoral process, trying to be able to enter into the psyche, trying to be able to enter into the mindsets. And the way they can do this is they see rich resource within your continent and they look for collaborators. Also, they also capitalize on people that can sell their country for anything. There are many people out there that for them it's all about money. There are many Nigerians out there that they are agents of people in the foreign lands. That they use all sorts of things just because of their own selfish interest to spy on Nigeria and be able to give information out. So we also need to be careful. But all of this, it can only be possible when you have a leadership that doesn't think and it's not circumspect enough. Truth has to be said. All of these things are part of the ways at which other nations of the world infiltrate your democracy, infiltrate your system, infiltrate your gathering system. Also, another way they infiltrate is through technology. Truth has to be said. If you as a nation does not develop your own technology and you are totally dependent on the technology of other nations, then definitely they are going to be infiltrating you. Do you know how much data that people have of Nigerians from different apps, like the apps in which you used to take loans? You forget that once you register your data on those apps, it doesn't go for free. Even most of these mediums that we are using here to be able to talk to you has data of millions of people. And you see, in the new grand scheme of things internationally, it will be a data warfare. Data is more important than anything. And increasingly every day, you are so quick to share your data. We are just so quick to share your data. The truth is, they've taken our data and they know too much about us. So when they know too much about you, it's easy to be able to take you on. Have you ever wondered the fights that other nations of the world are fighting as regards technology and all of that? Because they know that the part about technology also is that you should be able to look deep. Because if you don't look deep, then they take your data away. And that's why we also must encourage. We too should have our own Nigerian-made apps and applications that are doing the work for us. We too should be also able to have a proper communication Nigerian-made app. And that's why every time the other day I was always supporting this man that owns Naira Land. And I just hope he can improve upon it and we can build our own ecosystems too. Because if you don't, then you fall short on scale. And data is everything. So when you look at it deeply, another way they're able to get into your systems is data. In all of this, the greed or the ignorance of the leader is a greater tool. Another way they're able to get into your system is in contracts and agreements. Contracts and agreements. You also recently, when the state government, Ogun State, went to sign a contract and agreement, and the truth is, they couldn't go to the end of that contract, and this Chinese company sued them, and now they are beginning to take Nigerian property everywhere. Contract and agreements matters a great deal. The question is, before you sign the contract and agreement, you must be able to look at it so well that you look at the interests of your nation. The truth is, if you don't look at the interests of your nation, you will fall into the problems like we're falling into now. You know, that the Ogun State government has created for Nigeria in general. That they are now taking most of our resource in other parts of the world. How can we solve this problem? We need to be able to look into contracts and agreements. Contracts and agreements. If you don't look into contracts and agreements, then you will never go anywhere. Also, be careful of the international agencies you take money from. If you take money from somebody and you lend money from somebody, definitely you are in the claws of that person. If you don't pay back, that person can do anything to you. I'll tell you a quick story. China's debt to Zambia became so much that it got to a stage. A lot of dailies in Zambia had to start publishing their papers in Chinese. China could take over most parts of Zambia because the Zambians were not watching. They were just so concerned about the loans. But the truth is, when the loans came back to bite them, it had become a big problem. And to get out of it was already problematic for them. So they couldn't go any way further. And if they couldn't go any way further, they couldn't introspect, and it was already a problem for them. I'm currently reading this book, and I'll show you this book. It's about Prime Minister. In fact, I finished it. The Prime Ministers in the UK. It's about the stories of, most of all the Prime Ministers, written by Steve Richards. And the truth is, I was reading there even how the UK was very careful about the IMF in the 70s. In fact, I think it was Harold Wilson. When the UK had some financial problems, they too were careful about the IMF and their conditions, lest they get into problems. So if countries like the UK in the 70s, by the recollections of this book, were careful about the IMF, then we too should look strongly. Because you see, all of these people, they'll give you a blanket prescription. The question is, does it really work for your economy? Does it really fix the problems you have? It might not really fix the problems you have. What are some of the problems we have? We have problems as regards balance of trade. We don't export enough, so we don't earn a lot of dollars. And how are we able to do that? We should be able to do that by improving on our gas improving on our manufacturing sector, improving on our software and application for young people, improving on our solid minerals, to look for places where we can get more solid minerals, to be able to not even just get solid minerals, but be able to make products of them and export. So the question is, why can't we have our own battery processing plants here that will make batteries? Correct me if I'm wrong. At some point in the 90s, I remember in Ibadan, there used to be a team called Excite Packers. They were the team of Excite batteries. And they were the second tier. I'd seen a couple of their games. And they will make batteries out of this place. So the only way that can get you up there is a great manufacturing base. But how can people manufacture when the tariff for electricity is high, the business environment is very tough, there's an unstable rate? Okay, anyway, there's some stability now with the dollar to the naira, but the rates are very high. So we cannot produce enough to be able to stabilize the cost of our economy, and there's a lot of problems. And I'll give you an instance. Do you know, just one company that produces a drug in Denmark, Novovac, the popular drug was Ozempic, they make so much money now in dollars back to the Danish economy that they use that money to be able to stabilize the value of the Danish krona against the dollar. So we need to be able to improve our manufacturing here. How can we ensure that we get more revenue for manufacturing? I mean, these are the questions we should be able to ask. And that's how we can stop the West from constantly taking over from us. Nigeria have a lot of talented young people. How can we harness those young people to be able to build this country? How can we set up hackathons? How can the government also say, we want to fund the next tech companies? Rather than go and buying technology and software from Israel, why can't we put that money in the young people here and see how they can develop it? Take for instance, I'm going to play an interview I had with a powerful young man called Nord, Toby, that makes Nord cars. Toby was telling me that he has already designed the prototype of a car that can be a presidential car in Nigeria. That if he's given the chance, he can make that car in 8 months. I'd like to encourage President Tinubu, why don't you buy from people like Toby, buy from people like Innocent, buy from people like Jet Motors. Promote these people. Anyway, we congratulate you and FIRS for buying from Toby, buy a couple of that. But the presidential car should be Nigeria made. Rather than going to buy the American car, the Cadillac that was about $1 billion, why don't you buy, from all these young people within? Because that's how we can grow the economy. And that's how we can stop the West from ripping us off. See, everybody has an international agenda. After the Second World War, there was a rallying of meeting. The Bretton Woods Conference happened, where you had Britain sit down with America. And Maynard Keynes, that was one of the people that negotiated on behalf of Britain. He saw that Britain had lost the economic trajectory for the next 100 years after the negotiations favored the Americans. Alright? After the negotiations favored the Americans, and the trajectory of the economy for the next 100 years was set after the Bretton Woods Conference. So all of these conversations matter a great deal. The question I'm asking you today is, will Africa be able to set the trajectory for the next 100 years? If we want to do it, we have to do it by producing our own, developing our own. It's not going to be about constantly depending on the West. How can we start from within? How can we grow our ecosystems? And those are the conversations we should have this morning. 0818 099 1991. 0818 099 1991. 0818 099 1991. This message is going live across all platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and the likes. Call me up. Let's have a conversation on the future. All of these things, I'm telling you, it's possible. It's possible. And if we can start from our own local ecosystems, It's possible. Take for instance what I'm doing with the Oseni Center. Now I'm trying to partner with Educare to be able to get students to be able to do exams online so that they can prepare for their terminal exams. Hello, how are you doing? So all of these things are possible. It is possible. You can actually do it. We can get it done. It's not impossible. It is possible. And if you believe that, then you start to work towards the possibility of this thing. Hello, how are you? Bless you. What's your name? Where are you going? Speak up, Aguna. Thank you so much. So we need to get decisions right, also by our leaders. That's it. We need to get decisions right. 0818-099-1991. And that's why all the series we're putting out here on impact with Rufia on Sundays like this is to be able to open up your mind. Today we talked about how the West is on the developing Africa and what Africa can also do in return. How Africa can open the eyes of the future of its continent, and what we can do to ensure that a whole lot more can be done to be able to increase the prospects of the African continent. So these are the questions: 0818-099-1991. Hello, how are you?
Yes, good morning, Rufia Oseni.
Great to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure here. My name is Shola. I'm calling from Ibadan.
Great to have you, Shola, from Ibadan. Talk to me, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the platform.
Yeah.
Actually, the topic you're bringing in today is something that's very important for us to consider. I believe that we can actually begin to have that level of impact when our leaders begin to be strategic and deliberately willing to be known for being influential in the world. We have relegated our soul or our religion to that which is subject to the dictates of the West. And just like, for example, I used to say that some of the problems we are having even in our country today, pertaining to food scarcity, the hunger in the land and all, is a platform for our leaders to begin to cite examples of being strategic and showing to the world that we actually know well exactly what we're doing and what we plan to do to correct the problems that we have. So far, we have seen the government roll out plans that are actually not reasonable enough to take us from where we are to where we want to be. And some of the things personally that I would have suggested that would in the short run begin to correct the prices in the market that have gone wild is for the government to begin at all levels to distribute crop seeds to anybody who is interested. And this, well, in a way, will even begin to encourage us back amongst families.
Thank you.
Begin to gradually cut down the prices of food in the market.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for this. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. 0818-099-1991. A lot of calls and messages coming in from everywhere. And he said something very profound. Mass agriculture across board. Mass farming. That's one thing we should be looking at. Hello, how are you? What's the way you calling from? Good to have you, Lucky.
Thank you, sir. I'm very ready to talk to you this morning.
Thank you.
I normally watch you at our TV. I watch your program, all your program, guys. Because of that, I'm not going to church this morning. I might not go to church at their house. Listen to this program today.
Thank you.
Quick one is about Nigerian property that is seized by China all over the world right now. So what are we going to do about it? Because Ogun State is just a state in Nigeria, and they cause problem in Nigeria as a federation. So what our government is doing about Ogun State as a state in Nigeria, about collecting the monetary revenue.
And that's a good question because the governor that was in charge when that thing happened should be called to ask questions. It's not just him releasing messages. He should be called also to account. If he doesn't account, then we cannot move forward as a nation. And also, Nigeria as a nation, I want President Tinubu actually, because this has now become a diplomatic matter. He has to go to China at some point to go talk all of this over, because all of this has to stop. Secondly, I want Nigeria now to now review the 2001 treaty we signed with China on trade, because Nigeria is obviously not benefiting from that treaty. And it's based on that treaty, that's where they decided that if anybody goes into business with Chinese, it is deemed as the Nigerian state. So that's why Ogun State was not held. It was Nigeria as a country that was held. So we need to be able to look at that firmly. We need to be able to look at that firmly. So those are the solutions. So I want President Tinubu to go to China to be able to go and interface with the leadership there so that we can settle this once and for all.
Yeah, Mr. Oseni, I'm thank you for your answer. You know, formally, I'm not introducing myself for you. My name is Mr. Lucky Kugo. Calling from Yaba. So what my second question is about what you said about patronizing Nigerian products. You give example of some cardinals, some chemicals that is not good. Can't you make it as a law in this country? But every one of us, lawmakers from state and federal.
It's already a law. I think it's something called Article 5 or something. It's already a law in one of the procurement. I think it's a law in one of the procurement laws, but enforcement is always the problem. And you see, Nigerians who are the ones doing Nigerians. I remember they bought Inoson for some lawmakers somewhere in the east. They were refusing it. So we need to be able to enforce it on them. In fact, I was talking to the car maker, Nord, and he was telling me that some of the commissioners, when the governor of a certain state wanted to buy for them, say they don't want. How will you say you don't want a car made in Nigeria? You must insist on them and force it down the throat of the commissioners. And that's just it. So that's just it. Yeah, because most of the commissioners are the ones that are saying that they don't want the Nigerian made, that they want Toyota. Well, I mean, what is... See, and these people fail to realize that at a point in this country, Toyotas were not popular. In the 70s, 80s, Nigerians were not driving Toyota. They were driving Peugeot. They were driving Peugeot in the 70s, 80s. It was after a period of time that Toyotas now became... I knew people that used to reject Toyota. In fact, one of the first brands of Toyota that Nigeria started accepting a little bit in the 80s was the Toyota Crown. But then if you drove Toyota, people would just look at you and it was either Peugeot or Volkswagen. So, but after some time, Toyota became acceptable. So how can we now make Nigerian cars acceptable if we don't accept them from start? So some of the governors actually want to buy, but their commissioners are saying that they don't want to drive Nigeria. I'm like, the governor should say, shame on you, and please ensure that you drive it. My brother, I get that point, and it's very apt, but it's also, not that easy, because some of them will not use the car. There's a lot of lacks in our leadership, and that's why many things we need to get right. I'll give you an instance as we wrap up, because another people are calling, and not only you on the line. I was with Nord, and Nord was telling me that there's this particular breed of type of his car called Nord Demir. I drove in that car. I drove in that car recently. I took a test drive in it. And guess what? That car, when they went just like your Land Cruiser, well equipped and everything, when lawmakers were going to spend 160 million on Land Cruiser, that car was just 60 million naira. Then they could have bought that Nigeria, which is equally even of almost your quality as your Toyota Land Cruiser and everything, but they will not go for that. So that's why we need to build this country for within. Hello, how are you? Hello. Hello. Hello, morning.
Hi, Mr. Rufia. Good morning, sir.
Great to have you. What's your name?
My name is Franklin. I'm calling from Abuja currently.
Good to have you.
Thank you for what you're doing today.
Yeah.
So I want to be specific. The problem with where Nigeria is headed, the National Orientation Agency is my problem. Now, I know when I was a kid, our parents did a lot to, make us realize that good name was better than wealth, and that's what I've kept me to. I've had the chance of doing one thing. I've got involved in, working in an oil company where you have access to steal crude oil and sell and make money. I didn't do that, and that was simply because my parents taught me something. Nigerian youths and the young people and our country do not have a direction, and then there's an agency that is supposed to do something. Teach us how to live with each other, organize programs, visit states.
So recently, let me speak for National Heritage Agency. There were many things I started pushing for recently. In fact, I interviewed their DG, and many things will have to change because I personally started the Vanguard for National Heritage Agency to change. At first, they talked about the budget. In fact, the budget was too small. The budget was just a little over 200 million. 200 million cannot buy you ads for 3 months on the top 3 TV stations in Nigeria. It can't. So the budget was so small. But probably now with the advocates, they're going to increase the budget. And also we're also calling them, to be able to partner. In fact, I personally as an individual, with my platforms on Twitter and the like, partnered with them. I started retweeting most of their messages. And I've constantly been in talks with Larry Issa Onilu, my very good friend and brother, that is the DG of the National Heritage Agency. So with more work, they will be able to bring back those value systems and push those messages. Thank you so much. I mean, it's very apt.
I believe that, first of all, we have to agree that Nigeria is one country. And the only way we can get that done is if everybody, I've been fortunate to have traveled around, the northeast, southwest, been around all the corners. And I can see that Nigerians are loving people. Nigerians are nice people. They just need to know how to live with each other, believe in this thing called Nigeria. And then all of these other progress will come. If we believe in Nigeria, first of all, then we'll walk towards the progress of our country.
Bless you, my brother. I really appreciate it. We got a lot of people coming, and that's why we're partnering and collaborating. There's a man we partner with here, Manjem Pharmaceutical, even Ambassador Musba, we partner with him. There are many things, that needs to be that we try to do as much as possible here. Hello, how are you? Hello? Morning. Can you speak up? What's your name? Where are you calling from? From where? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, what's your name?
Good morning, sir.
What's your name? Good morning. I can hear you.
I am Mr. Madukwenta. I called you last week, sir.
Okay.
I told you about my needs. And I didn't hear anything from your end, sir.
Mr. Madukwe, these things take time. You've given your number out on air. So just don't worry. If you've given your number out on air, you just have to keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Okay, I should read it out, sir.
You've given it out last week, so don't worry. Just keep your fingers crossed.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, how are you? Hello? Okay. So we just need to make things work, and we need to make them work effectively. And that's why we're doing a lot of work out of the Oseni Center. We're doing a lot of work across the country as much as possible to help in the mindset of people. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, Mr. Rufia.
Great to have you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Manjem calling from Abuja.
Oh, my brother, how are you? How's it going?
We thank God. I tried calling you last week, but the network
No, it's not a network. It's not a network. There are a lot of callers. There are a lot of callers from all over the world. A lot of callers. How are you? How is your outreach work going on in the north?
Yes, we thank God. You know, I did last time, 2 weeks ago, that we are going to have a medical outreach at Kefi in Nasarawa.
Yeah, how did that go?
That would be to September 18th.
Okay.
So it's going to be a 1 week medical outreach to look at chronic support the other villages like Takalafia, Afinkwara, all those areas.
Oh, bless you for that.
Yeah, so we thank God. I really appreciate your effort using your media platform to reach out for Nigerians to speak out.
Please give them your number, please. I want them to support you as much as possible. Please give them your number. This is my brother. Please, when you hear his number, support him. He's doing so much great work in the north. He's helping a lot of people. Mindgem Pharmaceutical, bless him so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
094.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah.
83.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah.
27.
Yeah. Again.
090.
Yeah.
66.
Yeah.
83.
Yeah.